Call to order the meeting of the Grand Forks School Board for Tuesday, November 12th. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. A reminder, the flags are in the southeast corner of the room. One A, the reading of our school board meeting norms. Dr. Lunn.
Be prepared, be on time, value and respect each other, exercise thoughtful deliberation and conversation, be professional at the board table and when visiting with the public, speak up when the norms are not being followed, and advocate on behalf of students and keep the community in mind.
Thank you. Item 2 is the approval of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Moved by Mr. Palmasino. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Flynn. Take a roll call vote.
Lunn.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Klevin.
Yep.
Hodak.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Manley is absent. Berger.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Item 3 on the agenda, celebrating success. We'll be hearing from members of the staff of Ben Franklin Elementary School. I'll turn it over to Stacy Skarprud and team.
Under the yellow. Okay, and then slides up here. There we go. Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Mr. President Berger, school board members, district leaders, audience members, our Ben Franklin family staff that's here. A special thank you to Marcia McMahon, who is watching remotely today, but our Be Legendary trainer, she met with me earlier this week and helped compile some data to get ready. So thank you, Marcia, for that. And so, yeah, I guess we'll move right in. We'll start with some of our Ben Franklin demographics. And so as you can see from the chart here, we have a low income rate of 35%, which qualifies us to be a Title I school. And then we are also sitting at about 21% of students on IEPs, which is close to the district average of 18 to 19%. So we're close, just a touch over in that area. And then as far as our students, we also, in our numbers on the previous slide, it shows that we have 339 students. That does not include our ECSE numbers. And so we have about 36 early childhood special education students that join our school daily. There's about 36 of them. And so they're a special part of our school as well. As far as our classroom goes, we went down to 2 sections of kindergarten from 3 last year, and then the rest of the grade levels, we have 3 sections. Class sizes range from 16 to about 21. Special programs, we have 7 sections of early childhood special education, 4 classrooms. They're half day, and then 1 is just a half day, and then that teacher is done at noon. And then we also have a setting C ED classroom at our school. And then we also have room for a Head Start classroom. We're waiting for a position to be hired for that. So we have a room waiting and available for them when that time comes. And then our staff, here's a picture from last year. So we need an updated one. From this group, just speaking a little bit, we have 10 Category 1 teachers, which means that they're in their first 3 years of teaching. And then we have 23 teachers who are Category 2, so a little bit more experienced. And then in addition to that, we have about 25 to 30 classified staff that serve in paraprofessional roles of some sort. A little bit, looking back at last year, we had 5 new classroom teachers. We had 3 new ECSE teachers. We had 1 new special education teacher, which accounted for 9 new certified full-time staff members, in addition to a new secretary. So that was a big turnover last year of new staff. In addition to that, last year, our entire first grade cohort of teachers were brand new first grade teachers. So as an instructional coach last year, I spent a lot of my time working with those first year teachers. And then this year, they have a new principal, and that's me. So I've been officially on the job since July. I've enjoyed every minute. I feel like I learn something new from somebody every day, and I'm a sponge for learning. So I really thrive off of that and see good things happening. I do want the board to know about the support systems that have been in place for myself as a new leader this year have been amazing. So Mr. Matt Bakke has done a nice job of setting some of those leadership opportunities up. He and I meet every other week, and then on the off weeks, he's scheduled what's called leadership labs, where I have a running list of topics that I just want to know more about. My background wasn't special education, so one of my first things I wanted to know was all the ins and outs of an IEP and how those meetings are run and the laws. And so he set me up with some district, Lissa Dietrich and Brandon, to come on over and just go through that with me. And then I pick another topic and he picks a couple of principles. And so on the off weeks when we're not meeting, I have other people, district colleague leaders that are coming to support me, and that has been fantastic as well. And then one more addition is through NDCL, which is the National or North Dakota Council for Educational Leaders. They have a mentorship program through the state that I've been participating in as well. So I have a principal mentor from Bismarck and a principal mentor from Beulah, which has been really fun to make statewide connections. We've met in Bismarck a couple of times. We've met virtually. And so I just feel like my support system as a new administrator has been phenomenal. So I just want you to know that too. I feel very well supported. All right, so the format, we're going to kind of mimic the format that Amy Barch used and went with your Be Legendary training. And so we have some different areas that we're going to talk about tonight, one being English language arts, math, some behavior, absenteeism, and then school climate and culture. But we're going to use this format where we will share our goal. Some are quantified goals and some are not quantified by numbers yet. They're just something that's in the works. We'll share our outcomes, which is like our current data that we have. Inputs, meaning, what are we doing to improve in those areas, address those things. And then our outputs would be how will we monitor those items. So digging right in, here is some NDSA data for our 3rd through 5th graders from last spring. And so we set this goal to align with the district Be Legendary goals and to do our part in helping the district meet those goals. So at Ben Franklin, we're hoping to increase our proficiency from 35% proficient or advanced in 2022 to 45% proficient by September of 2028. So you can see our past performance was kind of on the downswing. We're aware of that. We know we have work to do, and then our projected performance is going up from there. So in just a minute, we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing to ensure that happens and how we're monitoring those items as well. Okay, here's another graph that shows our NDSA data. The lines at the bottom show different cohorts of grade levels. So for example, in 2022, you can see that our 4th graders, or let's go up to the 3rd grade. 3rd graders were at 30% proficient, where the following year when they were in 4th grade, still 30% proficient, and in 5th grade, still 30% proficient. So as a cohort, those students kind of remained the same on the NDSA state assessment. And so that's something that we're aware of, and again, in just a few moments, I'll share kind of our plan for addressing that. Here is a breakdown by student groups. Let you take a peek at that. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over to our new instructional coach, Nikki Johnson, and she'll share a little bit about what we're doing to address that English language arts proficiency.
Hello. So yes, in order to get our proficiency up in literacy at Ben Franklin, we are doing several things that are going to help us in this endeavor. The first one, we have our WIN time. WIN is what individuals need, is an acronym. And what happens is that interventionists are able to step into the classroom and help teachers with their small group education and get those students what they need at that time. We also have, last year in second grade, we had the most IEP kids in that level. So this year, being those students are in third grade, we are trying a model they tried last year, is having the special education teachers also push in at that WIN time so they can work with those kids that also have those needs. All these groups that we have in our classrooms are data-driven. These groups are put together based on what data we are getting through our progress monitoring. The groups are ever evolving and they're ever changing. We also have weekly team meetings. These team meetings are at every grade level, and in these team meetings, myself as the coach, our math interventionist, Stacy as the principal, our counselor, our social worker, we're all able to come in at that time to see what the teachers need, what the students need, and how we can help those. And yes, that does happen every Thursday at our school, it's a wonderful opportunity to make sure that the teachers know they're supported. We also have Wit and Wisdom that we are piloting at our school. We have 4 teachers that are piloting that right now. We have a 5th grade teacher, 2 second grade teachers, and a kindergarten teacher that are trying out this new curriculum, and we are very excited to get that going. We're seeing lots of positive gains with our students that are piloting this, are working with the teachers for the pilot. We have started this year for the first time at Ben Franklin, my understanding, is a coaching cycle. I have just started this in the last couple weeks, so I am working with teachers who have volunteered to be more intentional about reaching their goals. The first step in that is to get a clear picture of reality. In order to do that, we will take a video of them teaching, kind of get an idea of how they are teaching, how their students are reacting to that, and we will sit down and establish a goal from there, because sometimes that goal is not visible when you're standing up in front of the classroom. You need to watch yourself in the moment as a teacher and see where the problem may reside. Last year, Stacy had the opportunity to do instructional rounds at Ben Franklin, and she had nearly 100% engagement from the teachers. We will be doing that again this year after the first of the year, along with having another coaching cycle at that time too. The students are also engaging in their ALBA challenges, so they're very excited. They get to read books at levels 1, 2, and 3. When they complete these, they get their name announced every morning if they've completed their level, and we get posters hung up and everything else. So it just encourages their reading time alone, their independent reading. So these are a few of the inputs that we're doing over at Ben Franklin right now for ELA.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. I just want to piggyback off of the special education push-in model. I had an opportunity to do a formal observation in a third grade classroom where we had, there was 2 special education strategists and the classroom teacher working with the neediest students at that grade level. And it was, it gave me the goosebumps. They had they had a 45-minute chunk of time. They had 15 minutes where those students were like structured, focused, exactly what they needed. The timer went off and I was counting just out of curiosity how long the transition took, and it was like less than 20 seconds, and they were seated down at their next focused activity. So it kind of was chilling to see like how focused that 45-minute time was spent. So that was fun to see. Outputs as far as monitoring our ELA inputs is that, so we currently use progress monitoring with our CBM. Those are the 1-minute timed assessments. When we have students that are in the red, we progress monitor them on those 1-minute timed assessments every week. If they're in the blue, maybe every other week, and then the green, just more periodically to check in with them. We also just opened our STAR CAT progress monitoring window, and so we'll look forward to looking at that data right away in December with our data dig. And then we have new state standards and proficiency scales that were adopted this year, and so that is really going to be the focus of our work during our early out PLC times, so that we are speaking the language, we were using the standards to guide our instruction and helping students meet those needs. So that's ELA. Any questions on ELA? Yes.
You said the student groups are kind of continuously reorganized? So, and what's that interval?
Okay, and that determine, I would say it's about a 4 to 6 week interval, or it can be sooner if the student has mastered that skill. So for example, in a first grade classroom during their WIN time, we might have a group of students that's working on mastering their letters and sounds that weren't quite accomplished in kindergarten. If those students master those and they're showing that on that weekly progress monitor, they're moved out into a different group. And then teachers are also using that WIN time for reteaching, and so as they might notice something in their assessments or in daily work, it's set up flexibly where they can pull a group and just reteach them right then and there that day. So those groups are very fluid. So, yeah, thanks.
When you talk about the cohorts going from third grade, and then you look at them in fourth grade and then fifth grade, but the cohorts must change a little bit because you have students that come in the district and go out, leave the district. Do
Yeah.
you know what percent that is roughly at all, or I'm just wondering, because I mean, if it's a 50% turnover, then the numbers are less reliable, but if it's a,
Right.
if it's a 90% of them stay, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if we have a clue about, because that holds for not only math, or math and all of those tests.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it determines, it changes by the grade level too. For some reason, some years it feels like we get a lot of first graders coming and going, and then another year it can change. So I don't have a percentage, but that's a good thing that we should look into. I don't think it's as transient as the population of some of the other schools that I've worked at. So I would say for the majority, if I had to just speculate, I would say the majority of that cohort is Ben Franklin students that have been there. So, yes.
You kind of touched on it very briefly, but can you talk about overall why you think the trend will go down before it goes back up?
Are you referring to this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 2024, that was, I think that's a misprint, to be honest. So, let me think. Nope, that was spring of 2024. So now, that was the spring of 2024. That assessment is given, NDSA is in the springtime. So we're hoping in 2025, that projection is going up again.
Yeah,
So-
I more so meant just like the previous years,
The
why it
previous.
came down and then.
Yes, that's a great question. And we can speculate, and I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
So, yeah. We're hoping, all things with like new leadership, new curriculums. We have instructional coaches that are
Yeah.
working on, fidelity of use of the curriculums. We're really intentional about using data.
Sure.
And I think all of those things, we're hopeful that will make the trend line go in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to math. Here is our math NDSA scores. So same thing, we were on a little bit of a downward and holding trend, and then we're hopeful that our projected performance will go up. Our goal is to go from 39% proficiency or proficient or advanced to 50% proficient or advanced to help reach that district goal as well. Here's that cohort group again. Some of the same things, you can see the line following, some of the same things happen with math as they did with reading. Here is a breakdown by student group. We have two areas that have typically been underperforming, and that aligns with what the district is seeing overall too. I think our students on IEPs aren't making the gains that we would hope to see, and then our students from low-income families too. So those are a couple of areas. I know as a district, the ML population tends to fall within that too. We don't have a big ML population at Ben Franklin, but those other two areas are ones that we'll need to focus on and put our brains together to problem solve that for sure. All right, so Nikki's going to share just a couple of the things that we're doing to address math at our school.
All right, and you can see a lot of the things that we have up here for math are very similar to what we're doing with literacy. But one thing that we do have is last year we used some of our title funds to hire a math interventionist. Her name is Emily Thompson, and she is able to work with small groups of students, sometimes one-on-one, to help them with their math needs. That is one thing we're doing. The math interventionist then uses the program Number Worlds. This is a program that is used for our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students to help them to reach their goals that we have picked up through their STAR testing. We also are using that win time with our math, just like we are with the ELA, and also enrichment resources. This is one thing that we just want to make sure that we are reaching all students, and sometimes that requires the enrichment part. We do have access to a folder that has been provided to us, and we are using those resources diligently with our students that are in need of them. We're using Khan Academy to help them out. We're giving that little extra push that they might need in the classroom with challenging themselves. We're also using the Patrician model with the special education teachers, and then our grade levels, a couple of our class grade levels are sharing groups of children, so they're dividing them by the data, according to the data. I think they're doing that in 5th grade, correctly, you tried that. And they're trying to reach students in a different way. So they'll maybe get a different teaching style from a new teacher and things like that, so.
All right, thank you, Nikki. A couple of the outputs are similar to the ones that you saw with English Language Arts. We're progress monitoring weekly with the students that are falling in the red, bi-weekly with the students that are in the blue. We are in our CAT progress monitoring window, so we'll be watching carefully at that data. And then again, the new state standards and proficiency scales that are put out for math as well. In addition to that, those goals of like the 46% to 50%, that's one way to measure. But the other way that we have started looking at data last year is to look at their SGP, which is student growth proficiency. And what we've learned is when they are falling in the 50th percentile rank, that's kind of them staying where they are. So if we want students to make catch-up growth, we really want that SGP, or their student growth proficiency rate, to be 60 or higher. And so in STAR, it says the average range is 35 to 65. So it looks like, if you looked at the STAR data, it looks like, wow, they're doing great. But really, 35 is still on the low end. And so we have set our parameters to move them to 60. And then when we have those data digs, where we're looking at data a little bit deeper after those assessment windows, we can see the students that aren't growing. So we want our students that are, that lower achieving, we want them to be making big, significant gains. This is also a nice way for us to monitor our students that are on the other end of the spectrum that need enrichment, because we know they need to grow as well. So this is just a way that we have looked at individual growth instead of just whole grade level or whole school growth as well. Any questions on math? Yes.
So how exactly are you guys utilizing Khan Academy to help out your students? Because I know that I've used it into my high school years.
Okay.
Are you using it as like homework assignments, or is it just a resource that you offer your students?
Right, okay. So we are just kind of using it as a resource. So especially during that win time, and so that is that 45-minute chunk of the day where students might be pulling students that need reteaching, or we might have a group of students on Khan Academy getting enrichment in an area of math that fits their needs. We've also used it in classrooms where we have early finishers. We know that we want all students to still be introduced to grade level curriculum, but some are early finishers. So Khan Academy has been something that they can do in addition to that. So, okay. Any other math related questions? All right, the next couple of slides I'm going to breeze through kind of quickly, but this is data from last spring on those curriculum-based measures that are those 1-minute quick checks. And so as you can see on the far left, our kindergarten, and the format got a little bit jumbled up here, we were monitoring letter sound fluency for kindergartners. And you can see on the far left where Ben Franklin started in the red, and then you can see middle of the year and then end of the year. You can see those nice gains that our kindergarten students made. And then in number identification, the same thing. This one, I get especially proud of because remember our first grade cohort of teachers last year were those brand new first year teachers. And so when you look at their data from beginning of the year, what they started with, where their students were in the middle of the year, and then they surpassed our district expectation in the green for, that was the passage of oral reading, but they also did that for their math quantity comparison measurement as well. Second grade, passage of oral reading, and then we measured addition to 10. Remember, this cohort was the one that had a lot of students on IEPs that are now in third grade, so still some nice growth there. Third grade. And then fourth and fifth grade did not have a math 1 minute time measurement, and so this is fourth grade on the left and fifth grade on the right as far as their passage of oral reading. So that's all right. Question, Amber.
You mentioned that you have 7 ECSE classrooms.
Yes.
Does Ben Franklin have all of the ECSE classrooms, or are there still classrooms in other
There are
campuses?
still a couple in other schools. So Phoenix Elementary has a couple of the classrooms. I think we maybe have the majority of them. So we have 4 classrooms, and then they have morning and afternoon section, with the exception of one classroom. She's part-time. She's a retired teacher that works part-time and has a morning section.
So it's a half day.
Half day,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
And what would be the reason that someone would go to an ECSE classroom as opposed to like a Head Start?
Okay, good question. So our early childhood special education students have been identified as having a disability of some sort. So they're
Okay.
all on IEPs. And so for them, that kind of is their setting C classroom. We have not always one-to-one pairs, but close. And so their class sizes might range from 3 to 7.
Okay.
And there might be 2 to 3 pairs and a classroom teacher in that classroom. So real high need, maybe nonverbal, some with autism, just a wide range of disabilities, but high need. And then they get speech services. This year we've included them in our buddy classrooms too. So we have a 5th grade, that goes down and reads with the ECSE. So we're trying to make them part of our school community too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. The next part, I'm going to hand it over to our school counselor, Mr. Lee McNichols, and he will talk on the topic of behavior.
So we know at the campus level that behavior affects academics as much as academics affects behavior. And so really our goal is to obtain a baseline of consistent documented data to be able to track incidents as well as dysregulation. But then also being able to recognize students who go above and beyond. And so that is up in the right-hand side is our Roadrunner cards, that if students go above and beyond, they earn a Roadrunner card. After 3 Roadrunner cards, they get a Roadrunner Rockstar Award, of which they are able to bring home and celebrate with their families. And so our motto is learners today to be leaders tomorrow. And so we try to really recognize students who are leaders right now in the classroom and in the school. And so when we look at our data that we have, PowerSchool is what the districts use to be able to input and track behavior data. And when we look at it, if we looked at the 183 days, looks like we have great behavior and not much behavior that happens. But oftentimes when we go home at the end of the day, the tiredness would say otherwise. And so part of our investment with our MTSS team and everything is really trying to track that behavioral data. So that way when Mr. Bakke or Dr. Brenner goes and talks to people, they could say, here's what our data says. And so part of that is our leadership team had started looking at dysregulation of students and the amount of time of which is associated with that. The 21-22 school year is a pretty complete one where the two in the middle are shortened. And then you can see with the 24-25. But in looking at the previous slide comparative to what we have documented, there was a lot of discrepancies. And also looking at it is the amount of time of which takes for a dysregulation. We all have jobs to do during the day, and so be able to set those aside to help with those dysregulations and help those students get back to learning, it can be a big ask in everything. And so if we look at where the dysregulations, they is an uptick with the time that we are looking at. And so part of it too is being able to track that. And what we're doing this year, as you can see in the very back there, that 92 is the amount of behavior incidences, as well as the dysregulation things that we've tracked. Now that is a little bit different than the 138 that we have on our separate sheet, but it's being able to track that a lot better. And also with that, within PowerSchool, we're able to look at what are the areas that behaviors or dysregulation is happening. And so we can see physical aggression, disruption, and defiance is what we see a lot of that. The main places that it's happening is within the classroom itself, which is somewhat expected because that is where the majority of their time is. But then being able to look at that, and then as a district or as a campus leadership team, all right, how do we help the teachers to bring this number down? How do we also help support these students so that way the amount of dysregulation or the time of which a student is dysregulated is decreasing, so that way they can be the learner that they need to be within that classroom. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. So as Lee mentioned, previously when we would look at, I know when I was visiting with Marcia on the phone, she said, maybe compare what your data says this year from last year. And I said, it's going to look pretty skewed because we weren't consistent at tracking that. And so that's something that we've really firmed up and tried to be consistent across our campus, that we're all entering those so we have consistent data that might show us, do we need a behavior interventionist with our title funds? Or are we okay? So we're kind of in a collecting the data stage. Absenteeism, I'll go through that quickly. I guess our overall goal would be that we have 95% daily attendance or more would be great. This was taken from ND Insights. When I did click on, so we're looking at almost 94% in attendance daily, and that 6%, when I clicked on that green part, our two big student groups were students on IEPs and students from low-income households that were chronically absent. Our school social worker, Kim Lloyd, created this flow chart. So she has done a nice job working with families. We have that early identification where maybe teachers reach out, but more so in that middle area where we have the concern started. She will reach out to contact families and kind of help them through problem solving to get their students to Ben Franklin. We can measure this with the use of Panorama. And so you can see here that, it marked that we had 8 students. And when we click on that, we're able to see who exactly they are so that we can address those needs. And then it also gives us day-to-day updates. And so this was taken from November 6th. You can see that on November 6th, 95% of our students were in class. And then that 96.2 was our average daily attendance. And so sitting pretty well. I did peek at those low dips, and I was trying to look for a pattern, and a couple of the low dips were on Mondays. So I thought that was just kind of interesting to note. I thought, is it a Friday or a Monday or whatnot? So that might be something that we should keep an eye on as a school. Okay, any questions on the absenteeism attendance? Okay. Oh, yes, yep, go ahead.
I just want to say, commend you all because it's not the sexy thing to talk about, behavior. That's the word I'll choose. I think oftentimes we try to make policy decisions on things, but we maybe don't have as accurate of data as what we need or want. And I come from a sexual violence prevention background, and so we were always like, more reports happen, but does that mean that people are utilizing the resources that we have in place? So what that tells me is that teachers feel comfortable utilizing the report system that you're tracking to see, you know, what do we need and how can the board support you, or is there Title I funds? Your absenteeism data shows that kids feel safe at school and they're showing up. And so while there's maybe higher numbers there, it shows that they're continuing to come back. So just want to commend you. It's not the most fun thing to talk about, but I'm glad that you didn't shy away from it. So.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, and our final topic will be school climate. And so our goal, obviously, in addition to a student achievement, is that we create a place where staff love to be, students love to be, families love to come. I just feel strongly that when those things are in place, like, we can do a lot of good together. So, Mrs. Smith, our 5th grade teacher, is going to talk a little bit about the culture and climate at Ben Franklin.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to say is it's not by accident that our culture is improving at Ben Franklin. While Mrs. Scarprud says she was only there, that she's just a leader this year, she was our instructional design coach last year, and she moved mountains for us in that position in bringing us together as a team. So you've been there a lot longer.
Group effort.
Group effort. One of the things of our inputs, these are all the little daily grind-to-grind things that you don't necessarily get to hear about, but they are the things that make a huge difference in the culture of our school. And I think it's fair to say that culture is what drives greatness at schools. Our PBIS committee, our Positive Behavior Support System, is something that is coming back after being put on hold for a couple of years. We have Roadrunner Roundup assemblies. We just held one today for our Veterans Day program and had a very good number of 55-plus veterans come to a really touching tribute where we could acknowledge them and their service. Our other Roadrunner Roundup assemblies include things about character, student development, leadership things for kids. Our morning announcements are fun because we have one of our staff members, Miss Paige Sortiff, who comes on every morning as just a rock-steady person and acknowledges kids over the announcements. What kid does not want to hear their name over the announcements? I mean, they hear their birthdays called, they hear positive things about our reading programs, and dare say that sometimes teachers' names get announced, and we like that too. So our communication has been tremendous this year. We have something called The Buzz, and that's created by our instructional design coach and our reading specialist, Julie Schauer, and they keep us up to date on things that are coming, things that are happening literacy-wise. They also acknowledge a spotlight part that acknowledges something that a staff class has done or what a teacher is doing with a particular classroom. Our weekly scoop comes from Mrs. Scarprud, and it is a steady every week. We know exactly what's happening in our school, so that communication has been key to improving how teachers are feeling about getting information and knowing what's going on in a school. We have a wonderful Sunshine Committee that treats us to lots of treats and lots of little pick-me-ups along the way, including potlucks. If you go back a slide, we had a little hide-and-seek pumpkin card contest, and it is fair to say that we have a very competitive staff. Someone hid pumpkins around the school, and you had to find it and attach your name to a certain coordinate on the grid, and it was kind of a very competitive situation. So our special guests have included, well, our veterans for one today. We had the UND men's basketball team come last week, and we get to go and visit or go to watch a game this Thursday at UND, so kids are pretty pumped up about that. Next week, we're having in 5th grade some UND football players come to talk about perseverance and what it takes to be an athlete in a higher level education. Our student recognition, like Mr. McNichols talked about, our Roadrunner cards acknowledge lots of different types of things for kids, including leadership, but also including a type of effort that might otherwise go unnoticed. And then those Roadrunner cards, once a student receives 3, they get a little trophy with a little star on top, and they're recognized at our Roadrunner assemblies. And it has just done wonders to really pick up kids and their emotions and their feeling of self-esteem and their value and their worth. We are starting reading buddies. We're also starting buddies where 5th grade classrooms are buddies with kindergarten classrooms and so on and so forth. Just creating more relationship and more of a culture that shows a helping hand. And then, of course, our routines and procedures are what drives us in the happenings of our everyday things that we do. So there are many, many things going on that have really helped improve culture with kids and with staff, and I think the next couple of slides will demonstrate that. In spring of 2024, we had a 30% perception of overall social and learning climate of the school, and in the fall of 2024, we have moved to 82%. So staff is really feeling like there are very positive things happening within our school. And our next slide says, how optimistic are you that your school will improve in the future? And we are at 100% responding favorably. So I think that speaks volumes to what Mrs. Skarprud has done as a leader and an administrator in our school. Even though it's a short time, it has made a huge difference. So kudos to district administration for choosing her for us. It's been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Smith. And so with that, I'll wrap up with just a couple of fun photos of some of the things that we do to celebrate and have fun together. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So looking back on the attendance, there's 9 or 10% of kids who seem to be at risk. And I trust that's being addressed thoughtfully and help those kids kind of get back to school. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that goes back to the flow chart that Mrs. Lloyd, our school social worker, has created. And so she has worked diligently with those families. She's had them come in. She's arranged transportation for them, helped them connect with busing to get there. Provided alarm clocks for families, clothes. We've had students call in that they didn't have clean clothes, and so we have that as an option. So, and we've even had people say, like, she's bugging them. So that's a good problem, you know. And so she's texting, you know, families, you know, are they coming today, and helping them get there. So well, definitely making the effort.
And that's great for those kids, no doubt. And then on the Monday thing, that would be just a great statistic to track everywhere, because I know I do a straw poll at work on Monday morning, and I see it. So, but seriously, I think that would be helpful, because weekend and coming back to school it's an important way to start the week. So, I guess that's something going forward that might be a statistic track district-wide.
I was thinking, I know I've seen Lake Agassiz send out a little family weekly notification on Sundays, and I'm thinking, you know, maybe that's just enough of a notice of what's to come for the week, a reminder that we do have school the next day. So maybe we can learn from something that they're doing over there as well. So, anything else?
So I was wondering if you guys ever have student teachers that come in to your classrooms, like for like an extra helping hand. I know that my mom, she works at UND and she teaches teachers who want to become student teachers.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you do that at all.
Absolutely open door. We have one student teacher in Mrs. Smith's room right now. She'll have another one in the spring. We do have some students from the high schools doing the JET program that come to Ben Franklin, and so that's fun to have them in as well. And absolutely, the more connections we can make and get people into classrooms and and show them what a great profession it is. We're open door.
And also for the reading buddies, I remember I had a reading buddy when I was in kindergarten, and I still remember it to this day, and it was just a really great experience. I actually met him now that he's older too, and he still works here and lives in Grand Forks, and I took some photos home, so if you can ever give the kids like little keepsakes, I think that'd be a nice thing to do.
Thank you for that idea. That's a great idea. So, all right, anything else?
Just a thank you from us for putting this
Okay.
presentation together, for digging into the goal setting, for focusing on the data, and for doing your part, because we're all here for student achievement. So
Thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
we got a little bit longer winded than I planned, but thank you for being patient with us.
Just right.
And we'd have lots to share. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comments. I don't have any cards turned in. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment period tonight? Moving on, there are no items under recommendations for discussion, so moving on to 6, Superintendent's recommendations for action. 6A is our consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. It's been moved by Dr. Lunn and a second by Mr. Larson. We'll take a roll call vote.
Hodak,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Manley is absent, Clevin,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Palmasino,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
and Berger.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. 6B, Superintendent Evaluation Committee Report, Superintendent's November Evaluation. We'll turn this over to Vice President Josh Anderson.
Thank you. The Superintendent Evaluation Committee met on November 4th to review the evaluation feedback that was received from 13 board members of District 1 and 140. We heard from Dr. Brenner regarding his reflection on feedback provided, followed by us reviewing and talking through questions and comments in each section of the evaluation itself. You can see the full results of the evaluation in your packet, and followed by the full evaluation on pages 96 through 99 of the report, that they provide an outline summary of those survey gathered ratings. Bottom of page 99, board member input provided a weighted average from 3.31 to 3.69 out of 4 in all domains. And the Superintendent Evaluations Committee's unanimous recommendation is to find the superintendent's performance satisfactory. With that, I did want to take the opportunity to ask Dr. Brenner to provide his reflection to the board as a whole on the evaluation, followed by questions and comments.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the opportunity. First of all, I want to thank all of you. I know this is a time-consuming endeavor for all of you. It probably wasn't short of 2 hours that most of you spent on this process. And it is lengthy. When it's tied to my job description, it's tied to my goals, it's tied to HRS, it's tied to the strategic plan. There's a lot of information in there, so thank you. And as always, I appreciate the narrative. I appreciate the comments. That helps provide some direction setting for me as I think about my work moving forward. Some of the areas of commendations, there was certainly discussion about salary increases for all of our staff, and that's been good for retention. But at the same time, we still have some difficulty with retention. So I view that as both a positive and an area for HR and the entire district to continue to look at. We did have a small turnover rate last year compared to previous years with the workforce shortage. And as you noted, perhaps you noted in Friday Focus, I made a comment about Dusty Hillebrand from Job Service, talked about the 1,400 plus job openings in Grand Forks, and we only have 0.44 people per job. So, we're still feeling some of the effects of that, particularly on the classified side with paraprofessionals. We're still probably 35 paraprofessionals short across the district. That might be a low number. As principals hear me say that out loud. We do have 8 or 9 certified openings still. Some of them are long-standing openings, like our school psychologists. That's as long as I've been in central office, since 2008. We've always been short at least one, if not two, school psychologists. And then speech SLPs, we're short in that area as well, but we are providing those services online, which isn't the same as face-to-face. Some of the other commendations on the short and long-range planning, both in facilities and finance, and I would share those commendations with Brandon Bombach as far as what he's done with our finances and projecting things out to 2026. We're still on target to hit that 15% goal. And then, of course, Jonathan Elwine has been a terrific addition as well, managing all of our facilities with 3 to 4 major projects going on right now, building projects, not to mention all of the other HVAC work that continues to go on in all of our buildings as we try to achieve that goal of air conditioning in most of our classrooms across the district. So just want to share the wealth with those commendations that come my way, but it's really a team effort when it comes to Brandon and Jonathan providing that kind of support and leadership in those areas. Communications, the just-in-time communications appear to be appreciated by board members, whether it's a text message about heat index in schools, or we're going to have an early out as a result. And then always I'm out in the weather assessing that along with our storm team and our interagency collaborations across the community as we're making decisions about, inclement weather and those kind of decisions. And then also it's been noted that, what we just saw with Ben Franklin tonight, we've had several schools in front of you talking about student achievement and that there is a strategic laser-like focus on literacy, math, Native American graduation rate, and you can see now we're starting to build some of the school culture and climate pieces in as well. And as we continue to do that work, as the school culture and climate conversations continue, certainly as district leaders between Catherine, Matt, myself, and our executive leadership team and our administrative cabinet, we're looking at ways to, what is our influence on culture and climate in the building? What are we responsible for? What are we not responsible for? And how can we support? So certainly appreciate all the efforts that our principals have made and our directors have made and all of our cabinet members have made, and along with school board members really paying attention to how our students are doing in the classroom. Strategic plan and demographic task force, those are my 2 goals this year, to make sure that those are rebooted. Strategic plan, we're at the 5-year sunset timeline, so you should see that coming, a new plan coming to you sometime in February, and the demographic task force will we have another meeting this week. It's parceled out into various committees, and I'll be able to report that out, probably not for a full report for my March evaluation, but certainly by the end of the year, the type of progress we made with the demographic task force and prospective boundary line changes, if there are any at all. So that's what I have for you. Again, my appreciation and acknowledgement to all of you for putting in excessive time in this process. Thank you.
This time we'll open up for discussion on the report from the Superintendent Evaluation Committee or the Superintendent's November evaluation.
As much as I enjoyed my 2 hours of filling this out, I think a lot of times as I look through this, it's more of an evaluation of the whole district than it is of the superintendent. I would encourage the Superintendent Evaluation Committee I think it's time to look at the tools we use, not for this year, but for the 24-25 year, and looking at what tool are we using and is this a worthwhile tool. I think and rather than look at it in June, I think starting to look at it early on if the committee thinks it's worthwhile.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Clevin?
There's some really good things in there, and I think by and large, there's a lot more positive than other. But I would like a little comment from Dr. Brenner on kind of things to note and pay attention to as the not so good side. Self-reflection on those that taken from those comments in the committee.
Well, I don't have all those comments in front of me. You know, there are certainly a couple of areas, you know, that I can think of right offhand. There was a comment about whether or not I've engaged parents enough, and I think that was probably more from the Grand Forks Air Force Base than it was in district here. So that's one that stands out. Another one is, you know, there's a question about whether I should be spending time in Bismarck lobbying on behalf of public education, and my response to that is yes, I should be. That's part of my job description. So those are two things that stand out to me right at the moment.
Others? Yep. Dr. Hodak.
Well, this won't come as a surprise to many of you, but since this is my expertise with assessment and evaluation of personnel, I've had an opportunity to visit with Terry, and I do think that there is room for improvement in this, whether it's the process or the instruments themselves. I do not mean to hurt anyone or to question what you've done or anything else, but I do feel that there is a need for us to take a look at. I commend you that the job description completely aligns with the evaluation, and that's what I always taught. You have to have those two in alignment. Otherwise, if you go to dismiss or to fire and you're evaluating on something that's not in the job description, you can't do that. That said, I do think that in that job description, then, if we were to continue using the instrument that we're using, some of the bullets that are in the 5 different areas are redundant and repetitive. And what happens is, I believe, Dr. Brenner, when you're responding, sometimes you might be actually questioning yourself. Didn't I just answer that? Where was that at? So that's where I would begin, would be looking at that job description. The other thing is that I think I wasn't here when Ms. Flynn and all of you went through the complaints that were issued or brought up regarding Terry and such. But because of my knowledge and because of where I go back to, there are standards that are out there that tell you what superintendents should be evaluated on and such. So your job description is excellent, but I urge you to think about the difference between leadership and managerial. So when we're talking leadership and you look at each one of those bullets, does that mean that that's something that only the leader of the school district can do? Or could I have John Doe come off the street and do something that as well? But getting back to, there's the professional standards for educational leadership, there's the AASA, they have all of that. The one area that I feel that we are missing throughout this document would be the ethics of professionalism. And if we talk about the ethics of professionalism, and the thing is, going back to, I've been blessed to have Terry, Catherine, Matt, they know that STARE talks about the ethics of justice, the ethics of caring, and the ethics of critique. And so with those areas, I do believe that professionalism is one area that I would say I'm hearing the public outcry most of all, that we need to have data that supports his professionalism. And when I say that, I would, ask Terry to answer about his self-reflection on his actions and his behaviors as a superintendent. Now, as I said, if it's managerial, then we're all going to rate him high because he does do that very well. But are there some actions that Terry himself would identify, not from the complaints filed, not from us, but for improvement and for growth to occur, that Terry would say, I wish I would have done this differently. And I think by becoming more transparent with those types of items, giving that piece to this puzzle might solve a lot of relationship issues that could be underneath the table, could be back there and such. When I went to UND, I was so excited and I thought, oh, higher education, it's the pedestal. But what I found is I was evaluated on 3 areas: teaching, research, and service. And as I continued in my role, we would hear complaints about professors. They didn't show up for class. They didn't do this. And what we ended up, because I said to the faculty at the time, to the deans, Dan Rice and such, there is nothing on our evaluation that addresses professionalism, professional behaviors. We have to do that so that if somebody, anyway, I could ramble on and on. My whole intent here is I think we can do better, because I think 99 pages of an evaluation is far too cumbersome. I would like to see, and I have talked to Terry, those goals of his become perhaps more specific to one of those 5 areas. One, if we add a 6th area to the professionalism and such. I just think it was very cumbersome. I found myself, and I have it all here if anybody wanted to look at it, I went through highlighting themes that were there, any trends that I could see to start to pick up. I'm happy to note that Terry, what's in here, and we didn't confer, you just started speaking about, and we're actually addressing it. So I do know that Terry is reading those documents and such. I also would make the point of that I think 4 in the ratings and the rankings is too much. I would get rid of the 3rd one and the 4th one, not the top 2, and I would do one as simple as needs improvement, needs progress. And if there are any areas like that, that we would be expecting Dr. Brenner to write a goal or something more specific to that area that we feel. And I don't like calling them weaknesses. Any student that has heard me, or even in my positions, I would call a teacher, I would say, you're being derailed by this. A weakness means you may not be able to overcome it. Whereas derailed, no, you're just derailed for a moment, and what we can do. So I think we should be doing a little bit better with formative and summative. I think that we should be looking at how our own individual interpretations, I think that the committee has done a great job of trying to pull those together for their recommendations and those accommodations. But I do believe that a new evaluation tool or some tweaks to it alongside that of the job description, scoring rubrics, getting down to ultimately the multiple dimensions of leadership, which includes acts of professionalism, from personal conduct to professional conduct, relationship with others, acts and promotes integrity, fairness, transparency, trust, collaboration, going back to then balancing those ethics that Sterrett says, justice, critique, and the ethic of caring. Thank you.
Others? Mr. Clevin?
Follow-up to that, I love having 4 levels of measurement. 2 is not granular enough. And I'm pretty confident those in this group can discern between those 4 levels with some accuracy. 2 is not enough. The professionalism and all that, I think, Dr. Hodik, that makes great sense. Like, it's one of those things, and I actually give a lecture on this at UND every year. We never think about it because it's so expected, but because we don't state it, people don't think it's that big of a deal. But it's so important, we just take it for granted. So I would concur adding that to the evaluation process, but let's keep it at 4. So. but thanks for the learned discussion. I'm overwhelmed right now, but eventually I'll figure out what you're talking about.
Others? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the draft evaluation and find the superintendent's performance to be satisfactory in all areas.
Was there a recommendation in the minutes? Sorry, was there a recommendation in the minutes?
What
Or in
came,
the
yeah,
report?
I can answer that. What came out of, and maybe Josh, you have this language already. What came out of the Superintendent Evaluation Committee was a unanimous finding of the superintendent's performance to be satisfactory. So the motion that I'm entertaining uses that language to approve the draft evaluation and find the superintendent's performance to be satisfactory in all areas. It's been moved by Dr. Lund. Is there a second? A second by Mr. Palmasino. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Manley is absent. Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. 6C, consideration of finance and human resources enterprise resource planning, heretofore known as ERP systems. I believe this is Brandon Bombach.
Yeah, President Berger, members of the board, I'm happy to address this issue, or this agenda item, excuse me. So the business office alongside the human resource department and even our IT department have really undergone a long process now of reviewing some of our software applications for some of the back-end business office and HR systems. Really the goal here was when we started to look at the number of different venues that we use for some of these functions, we were 8 different vendors that have to talk to each other. Sometimes there's efficiency lost in that where it's a download of a document to move it over and to manually upload it. There's human error involved with those things, and so we said we need to revisit this. So one of the goals was to improve system efficiency, and a second goal would be to reduce costs involved with that. We really believed that by bringing those together into just 2 or 3 vendors, we can accomplish savings as well. It can feel like we're a little bit in the weeds here with some of the administrative decisions as the tools that we use, but there's a North Dakota Century Code that pertains here that if you should spend more than $50,000 on a single contract that comes to the board and really triggers a process to select your vendor. So we began that process some time ago. You can see here we actually had solicited responses for a written deadline of August 28th. From there, Griffin Gillespie, our HR director, and Darren King, our technology manager, and myself sat down to review those written responses. We narrowed the field from 4 respondents to 3 and invited them for on-site demos, knowing it was going to involve a lot of different staff members who use those tools every day. And so in late September, we had 3 full days of those vendor demos, and we invited in a lot of different staff members for different components that they would use those to weigh in on their own preference. So we solicited their response and then ultimately had myself and Darren and Griffin worked that into a scoring matrix that had been previously publicated. And so ultimately driving towards final selection. That matrix is here included. To talk through some of the decision, actually Griffin Gillespie, our HR director, is here as a number of components really relate to probably more so the human resources side.
Hello, good to see you all. So as my team, HR team, went through this journey, we really started to look at our processes and how long it took us to do everything that we do on a daily basis. And we estimated by studying some of the time that it takes about 3,000 hours per year in data entry and re-entry and all the things that we're putting in. And that's into about 7 or 8 different systems like Brandon had talked about. So every time we have a new hire or changes to employees, we have to update it in multiple different systems, which creates errors, delays, and on the applicant side, we're definitely losing candidates because of those delays. So PowerSchool was one of the vendors that we looked at. They do have the tools, but really lacked the integration and usability. iVisions we currently use as our Tyler Technologies for our finance. They have HR tools, but the functionality is very basic in their tools and is very limited, especially in recruitment and substitute management. So we are looking at them to keep them on the finance and payroll side. But for HR, we really felt like UKG was the best product for us. They're known for their robust and integrated HR technology solutions that are designed to streamline HR processes, enhance the user experience, and really support strategic HR functions. So really what UKG could do for us is help us a reduction of manual entry and data errors to streamline administrative processes, allowing our team to shift from a lot of the transactional work that we're doing on a daily basis to more strategic initiatives that directly benefit the district. Some of those strategic initiatives that we're hoping to have more time to do if we're able to cut those 3,000 hours, say, in half by getting a new system, would be increased recruitment efforts. So really being able to get out there with our job postings and attend more career fairs and just get more proactive than reactive with recruitment. I'd also like to implement some 30 and 60-day new hire surveys, which I did at Altru, which were very successful in gaining some insight to the onboarding experience for our new employees, which would help us to be able to measure whether this tool is working. 60 days would really be on the onboarding process at their current department or at their current school, so that would help us to be able to share that feedback with schools on the onboarding experience for our new employees. We also would like to integrate the exit interview process, and UKG would allow us to automatically create a offboarding checklist, which we currently do not have. And part of that offboarding checklist is we could have an exit interview questionnaire that would automatically be launched anytime an employee leaves the organization. This would give us valuable insight onto why people are leaving and be able to create action plans based on that feedback and even celebrate some wins, because oftentimes you get some good news from exit interviews as well. And lastly, for a strategic initiative focusing on wellness and mental health, we really would hope to have some more time to get our wellness committee rebooted and have gained more of a culture of wellness throughout the organization and focus on our mental health with some of our EAP program, employee assistance program, and other benefits that we have to help our employees navigate through those systems. So by reducing the amount of time we're spending on these very transactional items, that'll allow us to get to the strategic items. Really, it's going to enhance our customer service as well, as they have a seamless platform that will engage candidates and our HR team. We're also able to create a welcoming environment with UKG. You can build a landing page for all the schools where they can have a video about their school, pictures from their school to really attract people to specifically their school for recruitment. And we could also build a video, which we're currently doing right now, for all of our new hires. So any new hire that we onboard, there can be a welcome video from Dr. Brenner thanking them for joining the district. And lastly, it would really improve our recruitment as we would have reporting and analytics features with UKG that's data-driven, helping us to retain top talent. Our current applicant tracking system has some issues with it, and former board member Shab had brought that up a few times about how long it takes people to apply for positions. This new platform would be streamlined and would really, we wouldn't lose as many candidates going through this process. And we also would be able to shrink the time it takes for people to apply and time to fill positions. They actually have, if we want to turn it on, a quick apply option where you just put your resume in there and a couple other things and you can apply within a couple minutes. So that would be super helpful for our team. So that's really the benefits of UKG. Just looking at some of the other districts around the state and what they're doing in my conversations with other HR directors, they have the same struggles we have with multiple systems that don't talk to each other, and they're doing lots of manual entry and not satisfied with their systems as well either. So my hope is that we could kind of be the first person to bring UKG to the state and be different than others by providing that great onboarding experience and recruitment experience for all of our new employees. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Darren to talk a little bit about the technology aspects of it.
Thanks, Griffin. President Berger, members of the board, thanks for a few minutes of your time tonight. Interesting project, been involved in lots of these, obviously, on the executive level. The piece that I just want to let you know, I think it was done really well, the process. We're not that type of organization that needs to take 2 years to figure their way through something like this. I think the job was done really tight and pretty efficiently. And these are not IT projects. These are operational projects, right? So I don't know how many times I told these guys, I don't have a say in what products you pick. I'm trying to help understand how do we make these projects talk together, these products talk together, so that we don't have to duplicate data. That's a security thing, that's a data integrity thing. There's lots of reasons why trying to get rid of all the extra steps in the systems, the multiple systems, has a big downstream effect on security and privacy and all those things that we worry about. So I'm excited to help and get started. These are always fun projects when you sit in the middle and you're trying to figure out how to make things work. So I'd take any questions if you have any either.
Any questions from board members for any of these three staff members?
So the $96,000 of conversion cost, is that a contracted vendor service or is that an estimate of staff time?
That's primarily overlap of some of the vendors. The implementation would start immediately, and so there'd be a little bit of overlap. As much as you pay for, I forget some of our systems, but for substitute management, we're currently paying that contract, and they're going to get to work on putting it in place. So come July 1, we can replace the one with the new. So there's just going to be a little bit of overlap.
But, so that's cash we spend to others? That's just what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, sorry. Yep, that's correct.
Okay. So, and then in return for that expense, obviously there's operational benefits that are somewhat intangible, but directly we'll save $21,000 annuals on top of that.
Ongoing, yeah.
And how long are these two contracts?
These are 3-year terms.
Okay. With any automatic renewals, or do you got to go out and RFP this thing again?
No, there's not automatic renewals. We'd have to revisit that conversation. We would.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Other questions? Seeing none, you can see the administrative recommendation. So I would entertain a motion to select UKG as the Human Resources Enterprise Resource Planning System vendor and Tyler Technologies as the Finance Enterprise Resource Planning System vendor. It's been moved by Dr. Hodak. Is there a second? A second by Mr. Palmasino. Any further discussion?
Just, again,
Yes, Mr.
financially, again, now considering staff time and efficiencies gained, financially, this still looks like a good deal. Because the numbers, if it were a 5-year contract, different story. But 3 years, I just worry there's not enough time to kind of recoup the cash investment.
Yeah, I think that's a fair observation, kind of calculating that return on investment over that 3-year term. And we don't know what that contract could be after that 3-year term, so that's very fair. Yes, those numbers make sense primarily because you can see even the weighting provided in the matrix is 15% of that was really looking at that price alone. I think Griffin did a nice job of walking through, and I know it's a little bit harder to measure those intangible operational benefits, but I think that we will notice a difference immediately when we do make those changes.
Any other discussion? Dr. Lund?
I think the other intangible one is the improvement in safety and security, and I don't know how you put a dollar estimate on that, but there's improvements in the systems as well.
Others? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote.
Larson?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley is absent. Anderson?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to 6D, consideration of temporary construction easement related to City of Grand Forks North 4th Street reconstruction project adjacent to Grand Forks Central. This is Brandon.
Yeah, President Berger, members of the board, This one here is relative to a road rehabilitation project being carried out by the city of Grand Forks next summer, right in front of Central. On the east side of the building, it can get a little bit cockeyed downtown as far as cardinal directions go, but just on the east side, the main entrance of Central, the city is going through that rehab on the road and also the sidewalk. So really what this is about is the city of Grand Forks is requesting a construction easement so they can have the right to enter onto our property to turn around and finish the work on the sidewalk that they're addressing. So whenever they do that, they seek the rights to enter our property and they essentially lease the property from us for a short period of time. You can see that the project scope, the timeline here is really meant to start in April and end in November. Of course, that's a bus drop-off lane. That's a concerning time anytime it gets into the school year. So Principal Strandell and myself investigated that question and talked with CPS Engineering, and they're going to take a phased approach to not affect the most important areas during those times. We'd rather save that during the summer. And also, this timeline was explained to us as being a little bit generous on the project scope. They really would hope to start closest to the end of the year and finish by that summer schedule in which they anticipate being able to achieve. Ultimately, there's a whole lot of documents here. On the first of those attached is an overhead map that can help make sense of that. You can see the blue outline is really the sidewalk project and then the temporary easement that would give them access to the sidewalk. That's the only portion of the property they'd be entering. But for that is a lot of other supporting documents where we essentially are agreeing to their lease rate. So we're waiving the right to get a valuation for that. There's a variety, the actual agreements, the memorandum of offer, compensation and parcel, et cetera. So all those are attached, and really the administrative recommendation would be to approve these attached documents and allow me to execute those so that way they can have access next summer during the project.
Any questions? Yeah, Mr. Clevin.
I'm only worried that it's not big enough. Especially they're going to be cutting part of the very, very main sidewalk, and the easement's seems to be right along the demolition line. And that's not any reason not to accept this. I just see the day where they're going to call you and say, gee, we need more room. So that's just an observation. The other thing that I'd like to just kind of throw out there is it's $2,300 and, it's better than zero. But I wonder, just because we have a lot of entwined interest right now with the city, if we'd be willing to waive that fee and just give them the access without a fee. And obviously, that's something for the group to discuss.
I just have one question regarding if we do this lease and there is an exchange of funding, if someone is hurt on that, are they covered then by the school insurance or by Grand Forks?
Right, the liability would follow that contract where it'd be under there.
That's why I think it would be important that we accept the money.
I'm not envisioning waiving any other contractual rights.
The administrative recommendation is to approve execution of the documents you see in the memo, so I would entertain a motion to approve the documents and attachments listed, including the memorandum of offer, the compensation and parcel breakdown, et cetera. So all of those bullet points.
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. Clevin. Is there a second? Second. A second by Mr. Larson. Any further discussion? Take a roll call vote.
Clevin,
Yes.
Manley is absent. Hodak,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Palmasino, Berger,
Yes.
HS, 0 no, 1 absent.
Motion passes. 6E is policy review. The Policy Review Committee met on November 6th, and tonight will be to complete the first reading of policy DKEA, the exit interview. You can see that descriptor code and such listed in your board packet. So at this point, I'll open it up for discussion. Dr. Lund?
Well, I think since we don't have a policy on this, I mean, we do exit interviews, and I'm sure there's forms that are out there, but we don't have a policy on it. It makes sense to have a policy on it, especially after Griffin just talked about having it online. So I would make a motion that we approve the first reading of DKEA.
There's a motion to approve the first reading of
Clevin will
DKEA.
second.
Mr. Clevin, a second. Any discussion? Dr. Hodak?
With this, I was just, and it might be because I don't know what other policies are there regarding it, but that last line, I would ask that we talk or send back to the administration that the completed exit interview questionnaire will be placed in the personnel file of the person leaving the district. That means their responses, I would assume, not just the actual questionnaire. And then I would draw your attention to where you go back under the voluntary participation and confidentiality. The district shall be thoughtful and discreet in collecting and sharing of the data and information from the employee's exit interview. I didn't know if that was contradictory with each other, that first statement up there and that one, and meaning that what does the district do with that personnel file, and is that subject then to open records?
Other questions? Thoughts, comments? It's my understanding that this will come back for second reading and final approval. I do want to point out when we used the descriptor code REC that you can see on the bottom at the end of the draft, that means this is recommended rather than REQ required from state association, so there maybe is some latitude to take a look at some of that language. Yes, Dr. Lund?
Dr. Hodak, I'm wondering if on the second paragraph under voluntary participation and confidentiality, where it talks about the information received through exit interviews is generally not confidential and may be considered open records, subject to open records under North Dakota law. Were you referring to that at all?
No, I think it's covered. I'm just thinking that we need to make it more clear, articulate it from that, where we say it will be placed in the personnel file. So then if that's open to the public, then when we go down that we'll be thoughtful and discreet in sharing and collecting the information from an employee's exit interview. That's all I'm wondering about, because I know that there have been issues raised legally when, for instance, if I'm leaving the district and I'm going to West Fargo, and West Fargo knows that we do have an exit interview. And so West Fargo wants to get that information as to why I'm leaving. Am I a disgruntled employee and such? So that's the only thing that I was wondering about, just to make sure that we're clear.
I would suggest we can still approve it tonight because we have a second reading. If we don't have the answers before the second reading, we can always pull it and look at it
No,
again.
I totally agree in approving it, yes.
Thank you.
And I assume the end goal of the wording you're talking about is it's treated in accordance with any other HR data for any other public organization. I assume that's what the committee's intent here is. And however that gets worded, but whomever's on the committee, is that what we're trying to get here?
Yeah, and then for people to understand that the committee didn't come up with this. This is a group of attorneys in Bismarck who their expertise is school board rules and regulations and policies. So I think it's always great because I've questioned them lots of times too. But it's not like the committee, which is Dave Berger, myself, and Amber, came up with this. We would not have come up with anything like this, I don't think, to be honest. It's the experts that do it, but I think it's reasonable time to question it when we're adopting it.
I agree with what you're saying, and my whole intent here is that we, when they send that out to us because we're paying for that service and such, that's the minimal, okay? and we can always maximize. We can make our district stronger and better.
Any other discussion, questions?
Thank you for the committee doing the work. Appreciate it.
There is a motion on the floor. We'll take a roll call vote.
And a second? There was a second?
Well,
Okay.
let's back up one step.
Lund and Clevin.
We had Dr. Lund moved approval of the first reading and Mr. Clevin a second.
Just wanted to make sure I'm on the score sheet. So,
2 points.
So again, the motion on the floor is to approve the first reading of DKEA. We'll take a roll call vote.
Lund,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Palmasino. Manley is absent. Hodak,
Yes.
Clevin,
yes.
Flynn. Anderson,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes,
Eight yes, 0 no, 1 absent.
motion passes. Moving on to 7A, announcements. Are there any announcements? Yep, Dr. Brenner.
I have two quick ones. Congratulations to the Red River High School football team. They're in the championship game Friday, November 15th. Game time is around 3 o'clock in the Fargo Dome. So congratulations to them on their undefeated season going into the championship game. And thanks to all of you for moving this meeting up to 5 o'clock so I could attend my son's jazz band concert tonight. Thank you.
Other announcements? Dr. Lund?
There's a jazz band concert at South at 7 o'clock.
I have a couple of personal commendations. I've had several building visits over the past few weeks related to Veterans Day, related to the election, and just really thoughtful, intentional educational opportunities for our students in everything that I witnessed. And I just so appreciate the way that our educators are connecting what's going on in our country, the current events, to our students' citizenship, and to their ongoing knowledge of what's going on in the world. Sometimes we have this wrestling between what we as adults want to teach our students and what we as a society need them to know. And I saw lots of great examples of our students getting what they need to know over the past couple of weeks. No other announcements. Moving on to 7B, board requests for future consideration. I filed Mr. Clevin's request about Monday attendance. We'll take a look at that. Are there other board requests for future consideration? Seven C, school board meeting norms. Dr. Lund, how did we do?
Excellent.
We got an excellent from Dr. Lund. We are adjourned.